Hello, I'm Brian.
I'm Deb. Welcome back to Life in Guatemala. We wondered if you've ever asked yourself, do I need to speak Spanish to move or visit Guatemala?
The short answer is no.
That's the short answer, no, but it definitely helps.
Yeah, we know people who live here who basically have little to no Spanish. Some people have lived here for, you
Almost
know,
20 years.
10, 15, 20 years without really speaking any Spanish. Now, in some cases, it's because they're married to somebody who's a Spanish speaker, and so they don't really have to learn anything from themselves. When they have to communicate with somebody, they just be sure their spouse is with them.
Well, and when we first moved down here, I spoke virtually no Spanish, and Brian had his high school Spanish lessons that were slowly coming back to him. And I depended on him quite a bit, but also the generosity and kindness of the Guatemalan people here are, they'll listen, they'll help you, they'll tell you they understand, even if you're speaking very badly.
Yeah, here's one thing, and especially if you just go to Guatemala City, there's a fair number of people there that speak English, a fair number of Guatemalans or Latinos.
Yeah, there's a couple of
Um,
tourist areas. Antigua would be
yep,
another
Antigua
place.
is a
Yeah.
place where, and definitely in the tourist area in Panajachel and Antigua, because there's so many foreigners that come to visit that the people there kind of tend to know some amount of English. So if that was your only place to visit, or you were deciding to move here and live there,
One of those,
yeah,
yeah,
you could get by very easily without.
with almost no or little to no Spanish, and you can make it.
Yep. Um, One thing we did when we first got here is we almost immediately
Shortly after we were here, yeah.
signed up for intensive Spanish classes, and that helped us a lot. There's one thing I'm going to say. Some people, I mean, maybe somebody is very gifted at languages and they can just pick things up, but it's difficult to learn a new language.
Especially, we were in our late 50s when we came down here, and it was all new to me. And I didn't want to be in school anymore, let alone 4 or 5
Right,
hours a
and
day.
the thing is, it'd be one thing if I forget which language, probably Italian, I think, or is it French? That
French is nothing like Spanish.
okay,
It's
so
Italian.
Italian, it's another Latin-based language, and so it's a little easier because the way they say things are very similar, but the way they say things in a common statement or question in English can be not always, but can be very different. And so even if you know some words and you're directly translating, you may not be understood, or somebody's telling you something very basic and you may not understand them because uh, just
Well,
the manner of speaking.
we've run into that. We're fairly sure, especially with some of our students. I mean, we've been down here 6 years now. We've had girls living with us that don't speak English or not much English, and we've had misunderstandings, thinking we know what we said. They should have understood us, or vice
Yeah,
versa,
and really
and it didn't come across like we thought.
this is what I'll say, and it's about the way we say things, because Debbie or I will have said something to them, and the other person is like, "Yes, I understood clearly what you said in Spanish,"
And really, they
but
didn't.
well,
Maybe they
yeah,
didn't. I guess that's the other thing.
what I'm saying is she might have told them something. I say, "Yes, I understood what you told them in Spanish," but what they heard might have been taken differently.
Exactly.
That's the difficulty here. Not in all cases, but in some cases. So, um,
Oh, let's go back to lessons for a minute. There's a myriad of Spanish schools here, especially here in Xela and in um,
Lake
Lake Atitlan,
Atitlan,
especially Panajachel,
Panajachel.
and even some in the city and Antigua. The more immersed you are, the more you're listening to the language, I think you're probably, for most people, going to catch on a little bit better.
Right. I mean, a lot of these places, the main manner that they have of teaching languages is considered full immersion. You come here, You study Spanish for somewhere between 2 and 5 hours a day,
And you live with a
and then
Spanish-speaking family.
you are, yeah, maybe living with a Spanish-speaking family, and then you're going out and you're spending time in the community. And I guess that's kind of a benefit of being out here in Xela for that is there's not as many English speakers that you'll come across.
Especially like in the markets and things like that.
Once again, if you're in Antigua or something, there's a lot of little tiendas you'll go into, and if you're not very committed to trying to speak Spanish, they may be able to respond to your English.
Exactly. And now, just to give you an idea, like I said, I didn't speak any Spanish really when we came down here. I took these lessons. I didn't take nearly as many lessons as Brian did because I was frustrated more easily. And to this day, my verbs and how I use them are oftentimes incorrect. But I have been able, I can go to the store, I can go to the doctor, I've gone to the dentist, I go places on my own. And with what I know and what I'm able to communicate, I am able to do all these things and get by.
Yeah, and like Debbie said early on in this video, that a lot of the Guatemalans here are really great, and
they'll help.
Yeah, they will help you if they think they understand what you're saying. They will try and help you with words or repeat things back maybe in a different manner, and then maybe what they're saying in a different manner, you may understand some of that. So,
and the more you listen to it, for the longest time for me, a lot of people say, I understand it, but I can't speak it. For me, it was the other way around. I could think of words, but I couldn't really understand what I was hearing. And as I've spent more time here, I understand a lot more now when I'm listening than I ever used to, especially this last year. I think I've really started understanding a lot more just listening to people.
Yeah, that's one thing that you have gotten, and I really appreciate this because, like we had said when we first moved down here, I was the one who knew a little bit of Spanish that I studied in high school almost 40 years
prior.
prior.
Right.
And now there's sometimes that I'm not understanding something. I'll look at Debbie and she will say, "Yeah, they're saying this."
Or I've managed to pick up something
saying this
for whatever reason. Exactly.
And I consider my Spanish is
at least intermediate.
Yeah, I would consider intermediate. You know, this is a thing about learning a language is you can say some things, but different people have different ideas of what is fluent, and just to me, being fluent is understanding a lot of things and even knowing some of the idioms and stuff they use.
Yeah, when they use phrases and idioms, I'm out of it. I'm lost. That's where and you have to be careful with your own translation, what you do in your head. You might think of saying something that you would naturally say in English, and you try to translate that into Spanish, and that doesn't help them either.
Yeah, it just doesn't translate correctly, right. And they're looking at you like, why in the world would you say something like that, But in English, could be a very common way of stating things. So, anyways.
So the short answer to the initial question is, do I have to know Spanish or speak Spanish to move or visit Guatemala? Absolutely not. Is it going to be very helpful? 100% it's going to be helpful to have at least some level of it, or to be with other people that have a level of it. And it might be, I see these videos or apps or whatever, people learn how to ask, where's the bathroom, or a restaurant or a hotel. And that's all great to know those words, but if you can't understand the answer, it doesn't do you any good.
Yep, you spend 2 weeks learning how to say, where's the donde está el baño and donde está un restaurante, and you'll get a 3-sentence response, and you're like, what
happened?
I thought I knew some Spanish, and so anyways.
All right. Well, we're glad you joined us. We hope just this little bit of information helps. Hope I don't have to redo this part of the video because the thing turned on its AI all of a sudden. And it's following you.
My face. So, there we go.
I'm still playing with my new gimbal, so that's why you're seeing a little bit of crazy banter with us. All right. Thanks for joining us again at Life in Guatemala.